Hi and welcome everyone today for another fireside chat about taboo topics in a series of conversations I have with different people about topics that I believe aren't enough talked about in our society. And today I'm here with Hazel Jane, and we are going to talk about rites of passage. But before we talk about what that actually is, Hazel, welcome, and please introduce yourself, who you are, what you do, what you're passionate about, anything that you would like to share with us about you.
Perfect. Thank you so much for having me. So my name is Hazel Jane. I am an interfaith minister. So I was ordained last year, 2021, by the One Spirit Interfaith Foundation. And what an interfaith minister is someone that loves and appreciates all faiths and those with no faith. So it's a bit of an everyone is welcome situation. And I suppose Unitarian churches are maybe the closest thing to what we do. And through that work as a minister, I offer wedding ceremonies, so I can legally marry people here in Scotland where I live, and I also offer funerals and baby namings and rites of passage ceremonies, which is this kind of category of other. And that can really mean anything from moving house to going through the transition of puberty into adulthood or childhood into puberty. It can be starting a new job or going through a breakup. It can be a swan song. So instead of having a funeral after you've died, having a kind of living funeral while you're still alive, but you might be terminally ill. So it's really open, and it's for any person who feels that they want to mark a moment in their life. So that's my kind of day-to-day. And then on the side of that, I'm part of a project, building a business to basically make that hopefully more accessible, and make online courses that are self-moderated for people to really kind of dive into rites of passage and what that means for them, from a non-prescriptive, non-religious specific point of view, but also not from a secular point of view either. There's a bit of, I think, confusion, and it's a bit sticky, that world of how do we celebrate things, and maybe we can talk about that. How do we celebrate when we don't necessarily define ourselves in a particular way anymore as belonging to a religion or whatever. So that is what I'm incredibly passionate about. I have personally experienced the most magical rites of passage, not just for myself, but to be there for other people, and to see the healing and the celebration and just the joy that can be made from truly kind of settling into a transition and really recognizing a transition. So yeah, that's me. I hope that makes sense. It's all quite flowery until you get into it.
I really love it. I'm so on board with that. I'm waiting to dive into that a little more. But let's first, because and we know each other from Red School through a program on cyclical business and on cyclical living even, and I'm really a fan of having a little cycle check-in like every day, and let's do it here. So which day of your cycle are you on, and what are 3 words that describe your energy today, how you are today?
Well, it's a bit of a trick question because I'm pregnant, so not currently celebrating my my menstrual cycle, but it is a full moon tonight / tomorrow, so I'm kind of in that full moon energy of my cycle and of my pregnancy, because I couldn't be fuller. I'm really I'm due in 4 days, I think. So
and I really want to thank you that you are still agreeing to having this conversation.
No, it's my pleasure. It's my pleasure. And as you can imagine, I'm not doing an awful lot else. So this is perfect for me. And three words I really feel, I'm going to say full, because I think that's the right the right word, but I mean that really positively. I feel very full. I feel very grounded. I feel I'm delighted to be grounded actually at this point. And sunny. It's sunny outside. I'm in a good place in my body, and yeah, doesn't need all the explanation. Sunny, grounded, full. And I would love to hear yours.
Thank you. Yeah, today I'm on day 12, so I'm kind of soon transitioning from spring into that fullness of summer. And I actually feel lazy today, like wanting to just chill out. So we'll have a free flow conversation, just chilling with each other. I also feel very inspired at the same time. And yeah, there's a sense of relaxation in my body, which is nice for a change.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, thank you. And you already spoke about transitions, rites of passage. You will have your own rite of passage in a few days.
Yes.
And yeah, I really love how you have this, like, as you say, it's an interfaith ministry. It's what I believe in is that everybody should choose their own way of how they want to celebrate things, how they want to mark things. And as you also mentioned, it's in today's world, we kind of skip over these moments without taking time to see how far we've come and what else is in front of us, and to really just have this central point. Okay, and now I take time to mark this transition. And also because, like, I believe that every rite of passage is a death of sorts, because some part of us is dying. Even if it's like an identity, you will soon change your identity to mother, or like one of the roles and identities will be mother and not child-free woman anymore. And we don't take time to honor the grief that might even come up, or the emotions for the old part of us that's dying, and also like excitement and joy for the new part, and everything is there at the same point. Although we sometimes think it's paradoxical to feel sad and joyful at the same time, it's just paradoxical for our brain. But I believe it's very possible to have this plethora of emotions there at the same time. And these ceremonies, they can help us ground and anchor in that moment and really complete a cycle, so to speak. Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts? Why are you so drawn to these rites of passage ceremonies?
I mean, I completely agree with what you just said, and I think that you phrased it beautifully, because it's absolutely true. I'm so excited to become a mother, but I also feel that grief of knowing that I will no longer be able to float out into the night and have a drink and see what happens. You know, that part of my life will have to be over, at least for a while. And if you go into that with a sort of chaotic blindness, I think that's where resentment comes from. And that's where you miss your old life and you feel that desperation for the past. But when you take time to acknowledge that that is the past, and that you're stepping into something new and beautiful that has its own different offering, then you feel much more grounded, as you say, when those times happen. And actually, to reflect on, you know, that kind of sadness and joy, I was having this conversation with a minister colleague of mine, and she was saying that she thinks that there should be a sort of grieving part of weddings. And I completely love that, because when you're marrying someone and it's wonderful and you love them so much, but you also have just pledged the rest of your life to someone else. And even if you've been in a relationship for a while, there is still that piece of grief of you're giving something up, and you're giving up lots of other possibilities that your life might have had. You might even be giving up your last name. You might be giving up, whatever else. And you are giving up a certain amount of your independence and freedom, because you'll be combining assets. Legally, you belong in some way to this person, they belong to you. And it seems so kind of counterintuitive to our culture of it's just a big, lovely party. But actually, if you look into, what does this marriage mean? Well, of course there's sadness there. Even if you love that person more than anything in the world, you still have to, as you said, a part of you dies. A part of what you once were as an independent person is no longer. So I think I'm really passionate about it, because I maybe didn't have a real rite of passage until I moved away from home. So I was 20, and that was really the biggest thing I'd ever done. Or maybe there was kind of smaller bits before that, but it was really this kind of pilgrimage, as it were, of being someone that lived at home and then actually being someone that lived very far away from home as an independent adult. And it was this profound transition, and I loved it. And I felt so inspired by the place. I moved to Glasgow. I bought books on the history of Glasgow so that I knew where I was living, and I wanted to know every coffee shop. So there was these kind of ceremonies that weren't necessarily, it wasn't a case of coming together and drumming. It doesn't always have to be that, although it is quite powerful to do that. And so I have seen and I have felt this, this moment of unraveling and becoming something bigger and feeling so much more. And then it reminds me of the moments that I didn't feel that. And I think the best example for a lot of women is their first period or their menarche, where it was not a rite of passage whatsoever. It was a bleed that was uncomfortable. It was inconvenient. It was something that people didn't really want to know about. It was suddenly costing me money because I had to get pads and tampons and paracetamol, and it just felt like a pain, and it felt like the punishment that, the very Christian ideology of like, this is the punishment of Eve, right? And it never felt like something powerful, or I had stepped into a new version of myself or anything like that. And actually, when you look at cultures that do take the time, both for their men and their women, because their men will go through those processes too, even though their puberty looks very different, there's a real sense of taking that time and like deeply honoring it and making that person feel like they're part of something really special, and they're part of something like that is magical to be human, rather than we're being punished for being human. And so I grieve that, and I will always grieve that my moment of menarche that could have been something so profound, and as it was later when I discovered the wonder of tracking your menstrual cycle and being in tune with your menstrual cycle, those moments were missing, and I wonder what that's done to our psyche, that we don't get to stop, and I don't want to say smell the flowers because it's too much of a cliche, but stop and know who we are now, I think.
Yeah, just as you say, mark this moment, have a little grounding point before we move on. And yeah, I totally relate to that. Like in my family, it wasn't like shameful, which I'm grateful for, but it was like, yeah, okay, now you've got that. Here are the tampons. There you get your medicine. And now that's it for the rest of your bleeding life. Okay.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And I strongly believe, and that's why I'm passionate about my own work, that we can experience healing now. We can even experience healing around that when we have crossed over into post-menopause and don't bleed at all anymore. We can still go back and experience a kind of release and settling and healing around that. And that's what I do in my work with women, supporting them in reconnecting with their cycle, with their menstruation, regardless of whether or not they still bleed, whether or not they have a uterus. But because, as you say, we are in our society not really talking about these things, and also about death. Like, we are a very death averse culture. And what else is menstruation than a little death every month? And so our cycle prepares us for this transition every month. And let's make a ceremony out of it. And I'm really grateful that there are so many women who start holding these rites of passage ceremonies for young girls. Obviously, you have to check in whether that girl wants it or not, because some maybe don't want a big celebration with all her friends, which is fine. Sometimes, as you also said, it can be a very small thing. Just a moment that you check in with yourself, or you buy yourself some flowers, or you just smell the flowers. And that can be all it takes to just acknowledge and rest for a second.
Yeah, absolutely. I certainly, it's hard for me to imagine myself at 13. I'm sure at 13 I would have been horrified if there had been some sort of party and it was all, and actually I came to spirituality in sort of quotations much later in life. I really found my version of spirituality probably when I was about 18. So at the age of 13, I was like, no, I was really in that, science is science. I don't need anything more than that. So I certainly don't want to say that at the age of 13, I was sitting there thinking, gosh, I wish someone would adorn me in flowers and paint me red, or, something like that. But just to feel, I think, rites of passage, often it's about who's there with you. So it's about the elders, in the room, or the family members that go on that journey with you. And that, I think, is something that we kind of overlook. We miss that community of people, not just of friends that we can chat to, but of people that will sit in those transitions with us and help to guide us and to give us their perspective. And I think that really, when I was bleeding for the first time, if someone had just shared some stories with me, positive stories, this is your cycle. Here's interesting things that you might like in the future, but there's no obligation to do them now. Really gentle rites of passage. And of course, I quite love at this point, I love the idea of walking over hot coals, and there's, big music, and it's all, maybe people are on psychedelics or whatever. And that's kind of maybe what we think of when we think of rite of passage, right? It has to be this super intense moment, but actually to just be truly witnessed by people that matter most for that particular rite of passage, who really see you and can offer something to you, that I just think is very easy and is completely missing from our society.
Yeah. And yes, I totally relate to me at 13. I wouldn't have wanted a party, but I believe that results from all the upbringing, like all the messages we've received before. And as I am personally interested in the Red Tent movement, like in those times, women would go to a red tent every month when they bled. And so it would be something like, oh, now I'm part of the club. Something exciting to look forward to. Yes, it comes with other hardships, but it's also, you belong to a different community now, to the community of menstruators. And
absolutely.
yeah, the community aspect, right? This, as you say, this being witnessed in all of it, in the grief and in the joy and in everything that's there, and having someone to hold your hand and help you just figure out how you want to be with all these emotions that come up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's that community piece. I often talk about the things that we have lost in our losing of religion, because I feel that religion is generally demonized, and for many good reasons, absolutely. But actually there were things, and there are things that organized religion offers, which is, you know, what rites of passage are coming. So if you are, you know, if you belong to Christianity, and you know that you're going to be baptized, or that you were baptized, or you'll baptize your children, or if you grow up in Judaism, you know you're going to have your bar mitzvah, your bat mitzvah. So you know what to expect, and you know that there will be a celebration of you. And that comes with the flip side of, sometimes it just becomes something that people do because they have to do it, and it loses its meaning, and it loses its kind of weight and grace. But at least there is kind of something that you belong to, and the community holds you in that. And I feel often very sad that people have to organize their own rites of passage now, and that's quite difficult to do. Whether that is, you know, obviously I'm pregnant, so that's on my mind. It's I'm very, very lucky that I have friends who see what I love and who organized a mother's blessing for me. But if I didn't have those very specific friends, it's something that I would have had to create on my own, and it's just not the same. A rite of passage is not something that you should have to like organize and put together, and you do it and then you say, okay, like validate me that I've changed. It's something that the community brings to you and says, we've got you, we see you, and we're lining the walkway, and you just need to walk through it, rather than being the person that positions the walkway and puts something at the end of it and something at the beginning. And that's, I don't know how we can get that back, you know, where it becomes culture rather than religion, so that when someone bleeds, they don't have to say, okay, I think I want a party. Do I have to Google activities? Someone says, hey, I see this in you, and come and, you know, we've got you, and we've organized it, and we've made this happen. I think that's very, I
mean, pretty much as you want to offer, right? Like having these courses where you can learn how to do that for yourself, but also for others. So when you've got, I don't know, a niece who's going to start to bleed, you can offer, hey, would you like me to prepare something for you?
Yes.
And just letting people know that you do these things. And I, when you spoke, I was reminded of my own wedding, which is, as you say, an often like an unknown rite of passage, or we don't consider it to be a rite of passage, but it is. And I was so lucky that I had a wedding planner, and I could just let him do everything. And on that day, I could just relax. I could just be there, present with myself, with my husband, with my guests, and just enjoy the day, because I knew somebody else took care that in case there was anything happening, it would be taken care of. And yeah, that's what I see in what you shared, like having somebody else help us so we don't have to be there for everything. And it also made me think of the control aspect, because like I am a little control freak, and I know many other people, like, of course, our brains, they want control, because when there's control, it means we are safe and won't die. And relaxing into this, surrendering to somebody else doing this for us, it means that it might not turn out the way we had envisioned it. But if we are open and don't put too much of a vision onto it, we can be surprised by how much better it can become.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a fantastic point. And I too, you know, I have really strong, you know, this is what I want it to look like, and this is what I want it to feel like. And yeah, you do have to let go of that to a point. And often you make room for something even more special and something that you could never have imagined, because you're bringing in the creativity of other people. And that's, you know, there's something so special about that. And just to quickly go back to what you said about your wedding, I feel that so much, because I remember being younger and thinking, gosh, it's so, I don't know what the word is, but like, it's so over the top to have a wedding planner. That's kind of how I felt, right? It's like, you know, it's for, like, you know, privileged people who want to boss someone around. And I completely take that back, because I work with a lot of couples who get married, and the ones that have someone there who's just got it are so much more relaxed. And of course, there's a privilege element of being able to afford a wedding planner, et cetera, but it makes the biggest difference in the world when the groom isn't having to move chairs, or he has to do something at the last minute because there's no one else available. The wedding planner has all of that. And I really do think that the people who enjoy it the most are the people that have been able to give those responsibilities away, exactly as you said, where they can just experience the day, and experience the rite of passage. And I think that really is what I mean in terms of when you organize your own rite of passage from start to finish. People that organize their own weddings are often looking to say, well, did the food I order, you know, did that arrive, and did that thing that I painted myself, did that stay up, and did all this happen? And there's a balance to be struck, because it's beautiful to be part of your own ceremony, and it's beautiful to have DIY and to put your own creative energy into something. But there are so many times that we as communities should be stepping in to hold each other. And it's not that we don't want to, but it's that we don't know how to. And that's where a wedding planner comes in. You're financially committing, and that person is holding you. And that is kind of where we've come to, where it's like, if you want that holding experience, that's a financial contract. And maybe I dream of a world where there's enough pockets of communities where people say, when this happens for all of us, we're all going to hold. And that's, you know, what we're here to do for each other as humans, rather than all the nonsense that we have to do as humans, like pay taxes.
Or a world where the money that is existent in this world is distributed in a fairer way, so that we can pay each other for our services, but like all the time. It's such a shame, you're thinking about my postpartum, and really that transition and the focus on postpartum of really needing to be a time that the mum is healing and being held, and isn't having to get up and go back to work. And that relies on having people available to you who will do things for you, who will cook for you, who will engage with your rite of passage. And that's a big thing to ask of anyone, for free, especially. Give up your time, give up your money, cook for me, clean for me. You know, families are much more distributed now. My family don't live in the same city. They don't even live in the same nation, because they're in England and I'm in Scotland. So there isn't that given sense of you will be looked after in any given situation. It's the same when someone is dealing with a family member who's dying. Of course, we want to be there for that person, but we all live these chaotic lives. We have a cost of living crisis. We don't all have the means and the time to say, I'll come over whenever you need me and I'll cook for you, and here's a voucher for, you know, more groceries. You're right, you know, if we had the wealth that was put into this and it was meaningful, I think we'd all be a lot better off. You know, I think our well-being would be just much better. And I just stressed the money part because I believe money is an energy of appreciation. And like in our world today, money has become another devil, an evil thing almost. And so I just wanted to say, yes, we can have no money, or money can make things easier, and we see it as an energy of appreciating each other for our services and for what we do, but on a give and take basis, kind of. Yeah. So what would you say defines something as being a ceremony? Because as you shared before, sometimes, especially in organized religion, and I often say it's not religion, it's church, that was like the institution of church, that kind of, it's not Christianity that is evil, but it's the institutions that have built themselves around it to organize it. And so we often have this, yes, on Sundays we go to church because that's what you apparently do. You've learned you do that. Yes, you get yourself baptized, or you get your baby baptized. Yes, you do marry and all of that. But what is the difference to a ceremony when all of that has become something we just do because apparently it belongs to life?
That's a great question, and I suppose the answer will depend on individuals and what the word ceremony really like deeply means and how it resonates in us. I think the definition that we as kind of ministers were like using was the sort of creation of a profound event that included ritual of some kind. That's very important to ceremony, is that there is some moment of something happening. So in a wedding, it's the exchanging of the rings, or the vows, or the hand fasting. There is a moment of transition. There is a moment of ritual being shared. In a funeral, it's often when if someone is being cremated, it's when the coffin is lowered. In a baby naming, you often anoint a baby with oil, or you sing them something, so there's this moment, and there is a witnessing, and that is maybe up for debate. Some people might feel like, actually, I can create a ceremony for myself and I witness myself and I don't need anyone else there. But I think there is something really in the humanity and the depth of having people sit in circle or sit together and to witness each other in something, and that's kind of what creates a sense of ceremony. And I know that and then there's lots of small things that define a ceremony, which is a commitment from the people that this is a ceremony. That's maybe in response to the idea that you can go to church. It doesn't mean you're part of a ceremony. It doesn't mean that you're feeling ceremonial at all. So there's something about believing in what you're doing that makes a ceremony a ceremony. And yeah, maybe I'll just leave it there. It's the belief in the truth and the realness and the potential of this moment that makes ceremony as beautiful and as profound and as changing as it can be sometimes when the stars align.
Yeah, I can feel my body relax when you say truth. The truth of us is being witnessed. And this profundity, when it's profound, I don't know the English word, doesn't matter, but like when it's profound, exactly, there is foundation, a grounding happening. I believe when people come together, as you say, in circle, at other times it would be in circle. Today in church it's like in rows, but
in rows, yeah,
an imaginary circle, definitely. And I believe that there's like, when humans sit in circle, there's a third not a third, but another entity created, kind of like the spirit of the circle, if you will. Like this sense that the universe is present, source, God, goddess, whatever is your faith or your belief, like, but there is some other force higher, a loving force that is witnessing too. And that feels, I believe, more profound when we're sitting in circle than when we are alone. Although it can also be there when we're alone, of course. Yeah.
It's one of my favorite quotes, sayings. I don't know what the right excerpts, where, you know, it's if two or more gather in my name, I am there. And I really love that. And again, I don't associate, I don't identify as being Christian, but that feeling of when two people, just two, decide to really connect on something and to give something meaning and to spend time on something, then that is exponential, and there is something else there, because it can only be more than the sum of its parts. And there's something I find very comforting about that there is something more witnessing me in my changes and in my rites of passage. But I also think that's a something that maybe people are a little bit uncomfortable with, because people often don't know what that word is. And if you say God's here with us, there's an instant step back. And if you say Spirit is here with us, they're like, and we're still, I think, a lot of us playing with the words that make us feel safe and make us feel open. So for me, it's probably universe. I love the word universe. There's just so, you know, this vastness. And I love the word goddess. You know, I really so, you know, I love that much more than I love God. Goddess, the goddesses are here with me. Oh, it's like so yummy. But we have, you know, we're kind of finding that, and it's a very individual journey, which is also makes it a little bit harder to bring those communities together. We're all using slightly different language to say a lot of, you know, fairly similar things.
Yeah. Oh, this is so deep and enriching. If people would like to have their own rites of passage created for them, held for them by you, how can they contact you? Where do they find you? What's your preferred way of being reached out to?
Well, I have a website, which is www.byhazeljane.com, which is probably the easiest way. Don't contact me in the next 2 weeks from this date.
Let's say in the next 3 months, because postpartum is a fourth trimester.
Yes, absolutely. Because I will be deep in baby land. But yes, that is the best way to contact me. And I'm on Instagram as @RevHazelJane. And so you can find me there and see a little bit more about the kinds of things that I do. And I also really encourage people to, you know, seek out other celebrants and wherever they are, and to try things out with friends. We're doing a lot of experimentation in my friendship group of putting things together for each other and seeing what works and what doesn't, and what felt amazing and what we could tweak. And there's a lot of joy in that. So, but I'm very much here and very much here and loving this work.
Yeah, and since you will be developing courses and all of that, that is probably going to be found through your website as well. So people might, wherever they are in the world, might want to reach out, because I really feel this grounded excitement. And I love the words, the combination of grounded excitement. And I can see that in you. You're so passionate and you're so grounded. And I would love, if I had known you at the point, like I would have loved for you to facilitate my wedding. Totally.
Oh, I mean, that means a lot. And it's truly, and I don't mean this in a cliche sense, but it is such an honor to be there on those days with people and to be the person that they felt could do that with them and stand up next to them, because that's, you know, you're the person that is next to these people going through something so immense. And I hope that I never take it for granted, because I'm incredibly grateful for finding this work and doing this work and getting to spend big, beautiful days in big, beautiful places with so many wonderful people. So it means a lot to hear that.
I definitely hear the sincerity in your voice. Some things need to be said, even though they sound word-wise like cliche, but I know you mean it.
Thank you.
As a last part, do you have a message or something that you would like to share with our listeners that may or may not have been already touched on today, but just some final words for closure?
Gosh. I feel the pressure to say something somewhat profound, but I suppose just that if people feel that they have never had a rite of passage, and even that feels brand new and a bit weird, that I see that too, and that I want to acknowledge that this whole subject can feel very far away if it's just not something you've ever had contact with. And maybe a lot of your listeners, will have a kind of spiritual perspective, but I know it can be hard to reflect and feel that you weren't witnessed and you weren't held through the transitions in your life. And if that is the case, then first of all, as you said earlier, you can go back and that can still be healed, but also just that I see that too, and that's very much okay and expected in this society.
And these simple things are often the most profound. So thank you for mentioning that, because it is so new to us. We are just remembering. I mean, it's ancient wisdom. I believe it's in our bones, but we're just remembering. So yes, it might be strange. And myself, I found back to my spiritual self 5 years ago when I was 30. So however, we have to allow ourselves in this world that teaches that woo-woo is esoteric and strange and all of this is just a lot of BS. We have to have the courage to find our own way of spirituality, and just in case that scares someone off. For me, spirituality means simply being in connection with yourself and with something that's higher than yourself or deeper than yourself. And we see you, and we are here for you also if you want to take your first steps into that direction.
Yeah,
thank you, Hazel.
Thank you so much for having me.
It was a really deep conversation. There's so many gems in there. I wish you all the best for your rite of passage that's happening so soon. And have a beautiful day.
You too. Yeah, it's been such a pleasure speaking to you, and the sun has been shining on me, so it's just very, very lovely. So thank you so much again.
You're welcome. Bye.
Right. See you. Bye.